This is such an exciting weekend for me. I have been working on Mega Build for such a while, and here it is. Finally, dreams can come true. Mega Build, don't go away. Hey ladies and gentlemen, it is Paul from Fat Guy Productions coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. And it is bright and early Saturday morning, and I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to bring to you part one of Mega. Oh yeah, I am so excited. I am cranked about this thing. This is a project that really tested my boundaries. And like I've always said, I think you can learn a lot by watching people with their successes, their failures, and whatever else that they have going on. And so I'm hoping you guys get a lot out of this. I really hope you enjoy this. I'm sorry I had to break it apart into two pieces, but I just didn't feel like I could shortchange you on all of the stuff that was happening, and I had to make the video long, and the only way to make that palatable was to break it into two fast pieces. So today you'll get part one, tomorrow you'll get part two, and on Monday you'll get the uncut version of Mega Build. So let's go ahead and tell you what Mega Build, the first Mega Build is, and let's get right to it. The first Mega Build today, thank you Gustav for this, not just for the suggestion, but for constantly pushing me in the ass to get this done. The very first Mega Build is going to be taking the Leslie Matchbox S&S Cadillac ambulance and converting it to ours. Let's get right to it. Alright, today what we're going to be doing for the Mega Build is we're going to take this Leslie Matchbox S&S Cadillac ambulance and we are converting it to a hearse. So thank you for that idea, Gustav. We started by taking this and using my shielded drilling, taking this S&S ambulance apart. But at one point I decided it's in too nice a condition, so I'm actually going to dig through my scrap pile and change out the body. I have an old body that had a blown out post I'm going to use. Hopefully I can fix that post with the special technique, and if not, then this will be a fallback position. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to test out some theories and see if everything is actually going to work before I get too deep into this. And the first thing I got to do is figure out, can I get a coffin in the back of this sucker? So to do that, I'm going to have to take the interior and get rid of the gurney and the equipment cabinet and the jump seat. Now I tried, you see the saws there, I tried sawing that stuff away and it didn't seem to work overly well. So what I'm doing here is I'm using some sharp side cutters that I use for removing model parts from sprues, and I'm nipping away the plastic, trying to be careful that I don't start a big split or a crack that ruins the entire interior piece. So I'm just removing as much of that as possible, and then the idea is with what's left, I'll lay down a piece of sheet styrene to make a new floor. So we're just going to kind of nibble this away here and see what happens. Gotta go. The interior pieces of these cars are usually fairly soft, but because they are still so old, they can be brittle. So it's really careful, really important to be careful here. Last thing on earth you want to do is ruin this piece. Although for Mega Build, I did come prepared, and I have a lot of backup parts here. But really, this has come out pretty well, and now I just need to figure out how to get rid of that little jump seat. And I'm just basically going to gnaw it off like a beaver. Now, here are the coffins I made using my Anycubic Photon 3D resin printer. And I found these on Thingiverse and scaled them down, and I made like 5 different versions, and I'm doing a test fit to see if they're going to kind of fit, sort of a proof of concept type thing here. Now that I know they will, I'll go ahead and continue to work at nipping away the jump seat here that I don't need. Now this is going to put a big hole where I'm not going to want it, so we're going to have to fill that later. The rest of the stuff that's been nipped away is going to be covered up nicely with a new floor that I'm going to make out of some styrene. So that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, for the early phases, I'm pretty happy with this so far. You see, I'm going to put a floor right there. And right now, I'm just going to take a razor knife and just kind of clean up some of the extra I couldn't get with the side cutters so that everything will sit flat and flush. And then I can get back to it later and put the floor down and fill that little hole. Okay, so I've never done a project with this many modifications, so there will be a lot of test fitting. To quote what they say in the woodworking world, cut once, measure twice, cut once. So that's what I'm going to try and do, but everything still fits, and it looks like I have plenty of clearance for the coffin still. So we can go ahead and move on. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to use my drill and get this glass out of here. Now I need all the glass I can get because not only do I want to put glass back in the ambulance, but I also want to use a piece to form a back window. I've never seen a hearse driving with its back window open. So I've drilled out the tab, and I'm going to just kind of get in there and pop that glass off of it. You got to get it off the little rivet and then slide it back and out of the windshield. And sometimes it can be a little sticky, but you got to be really careful here because, like I said, I don't have a lot of glass to be breaking willy-nilly. So there it goes. We'll put this to the side. It's got some damage to it, but it's got some parts I'm going to be able to use to make that back window. So it's definitely something I'm going to be saving here. Oh, it's going to be razor thin there. As long as I have the glass, I'm just going to do a quick kind of hold it up against the rear window and see if, is there any chance in the world this is going to be able to make a rear window. And it looks like it's just barely going to make it. So that is a good thing, because if it wasn't, I wasn't sure what I was going to do back here. So like I said before, I get too deep into everything, I'm just trying to do some of the major things that I see that I have to deal with. So right now I'm going to go ahead and get the lights and stuff off the roof. And it looks like my rotary tool and a grinding stone are going to be the best tool for the job. And I'm just going to buzz those things right off the roof. I'm going to try and get down as close to the roof as possible, maybe leave it a little proud, and then I'll manually sand down. I don't want to put a bunch of big grooves into the roof that I'm going to have to deal with later. But again, right now, you're going to notice I'm going to jump around a lot. And it's because I don't know how any of this is going to come out. I really don't. I went into this eyes wide open, but fingers crossed. And so I'm just trying to get some of the most important stages tackled to make sure that they're going to work out. That way I don't waste weeks of time trying to do this project and have it become a failure. So grinding away we go. Okay, so that actually went really, really well. The metal of these die-cast cars, as you should all know by now, is just crap. And getting it off with a file or even sandpaper is pretty easy work. And so when you have a rotary tool and a grinding stone, you can see it didn't take me long to get those off of there. So that was a big hurdle. And then we can go ahead and turn our attention to some of the other body work. That's kind of where my focus is right now, is the body work and seeing if I'm going to be able to pull this off. Okay, so I want to fill in the rear windows, the side rear windows of this. I'm going to put glass in the back window. But before I tackle that, I'm far enough and I've got enough progress that I'm going to go ahead and get this paint off. So let's get the paint off, and then we can get the body all cleaned up, and then we can go ahead and focus on the next task at hand. But our normal stripping procedure, I'm just using my stripper and painting it on with the brush, getting the base and the the ambulance body, and then I get to kick back and watch it do its magic, which, as you all know, I really, really love to watch. And then when it's all nice and loose and slippery and slimy, I will take it over to the sink, and I'll scrub it down in some water, and I'll get rid of the residual, get rid of all the leftover stripper, and we'll see what we have. Okay, so I'm back from the sink, and it came out pretty good, but there's still some spots where there's some paint, but I can get that off pretty easily just using the brass bristle brush, and we'll give this thing a good scrub. That's going to get rid of a lot of the specks and fleckles that didn't come off. We can use the dental picks for grooves and things like that, and it also will kind of even out the body a little bit, okay? The brass bristle brush really makes a nice starting point for you. Okay, so that worked out pretty good, and I gave the body a wash and put it aside to dry. And so while that's doing that, I can turn my attention back to the interior, and I'm going to make this floor. So I've got a piece of sheet styrene here. It's got grooves on one side and smooth on the other. And my intention is to put the groove side up, and I realize this is detail you're never in a million years ever going to see, but I would imagine that the floor in the back of a hearse probably has tracks and stuff to hold the caskets. So I'm going to put the little grooves face up. So I'm just kind of marking it off, and then I'll score it and snap it off and clean it up and test fit it and see what we have there. Okay, so anytime you do this, especially if you don't cut all the way through, if you kind of break off the very end, you're going to have like a little lip that you got to deal with. It's not a big deal. Just hit it with the razor knife. And now I'm doing a little bit of final cleanup where the jump seat was to make sure that the floor is going to be able to fit properly and flush where it's supposed to go. And now we can do a quick test fit and see what we think. Yeah, if my big old fumble fingers would start to function here. But yeah, no, I'm liking that. I think it's looking really good. There's a nice big flat floor, so we can go ahead and clamp it down. And I'm just going to use a little thin liquid plastic model cement. And I'm going to just let capillary action do its job. I'm going to touch it to the seam. The glue will flow throughout the seam and weld these pieces of plastic together. See, all I gotta do is touch it right there, and capillary action did that. That stuff is gonna go everywhere, and it's gonna weld itself together, and then we can put it aside to dry, and we'll deal with that again later. Well, the body's dry and I had the sheet plastic out, so now what I'm doing is I'm fabricating little inserts to fit where the rear windows go. Now, these don't have to be picture perfect, but what I wanted is I wanted them to friction fit. These are just friction fit in there right now. That way I can set them and position them, and I don't have to fight with them falling out. Then once I'm happy with that, then I can glue them in. So right now the goal was to get them as close as possible and get them friction fit into the openings. Now I've got a little thin CA in my little tray, and I'm splitting the tip of a toothpick here to kind of make like a little crazy glue paintbrush, if you will. And after I split this up, I'll dip it in the crazy glue, let it dry a little bit, and it'll seal that wood. And then this will become sort of like a little crazy glue paintbrush, and I can dab CA into all the seams between the plastic inserts and the body. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to do it to every seam inside and out all the way around 100%, because I really, if these things pop out on me later, it could do so with disastrous impact. So I really got to make sure these suckers are in. I don't know. You tell me. I think that is looking amazing, and haven't even put any filler in there or anything like that. I think it's really, really working out great. Now, a simpler way to deal with the lights on the roof is I just put a little piece of blue tape underneath the holes to keep, kind of act like a little bit of a backer board. I'm going to use some AK Interactive hard putty. This stuff is going to dry rock hard, and it's going to fill those holes very nicely. I've heard other guys talking about using epoxies, JB Weld, stuff like that. You could even use CA and baking soda. So, yeah, baking soda. I can never remember the two. You know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, I'm just going to use the putty. I have it here. I know it works. And I'm going to blob some on there, and then I'll smooth it out a little bit with a tool, but not too much, because the ultimate goal is I'm going to have to sand all of this flush and flat. Right now, all I want to do is get those holes filled, and then later I can go back, sand, and do any finish filling. And there really isn't any time like the present. I have the filler out, and the interior piece is sitting right here. And as you remember, I told you when I cut out that jump seat, there was a hole there I was going to have to fill. So fortunately, there's a nice little empty trough underneath the interior where I can just go in and push a bunch of filler in there. And I'm actually going to push it through the hole pretty good and let it stand proud out on the other side. And then I'll kind of clean it up a little bit, and then I'll come back and sand it after it's dry. The main idea is I just want to get it completely filled, and then put it aside and let it do its thing. So you can see it, there's like a little lump of it here, and all I'm doing is really, really lightly, because I don't want to push it back out. I'm just kind of scraping away a little bit of the excess, and that looks pretty good. We can go back and sand it and clean it up later. I'm not really a big guy on sanding and stuff on my die-cast cars. I figure the imperfections from casting and stuff like that, that's the way the cars came. I don't really mess with that a lot. But in this particular instance, sanding was a necessary evil to deal with the bodywork that I was being forced to do. So it took me a while to get the roof to be what I wanted it to be. So there was a lot of work going in on that. And then I would eventually have to deal with the side windows. And so the first thing I wanted to do is just kind of make sure that they were on the same plane all the way across. And then I could apply little bits of filler where I needed to, and deal with those sides as such. But so this car, way more sanding, filing, trimming, whatever, than I've ever done on any project before. So it is what it is. Okay, all that's dry. I've taken the backer tape out of the ceiling. I'm test fitting the interior to make sure there's no issues from the roof, or especially from the window inserts, because they do stand a little proud on the inside, which means I'm going to have to alter the glass when I go to put it back in there. I'm actually going to have to cut the back windows out when I do that. Now, I had originally thought about just putting the glass in and filling over that, but I think this ended up being the better way. But anyhow, bottom line is, again, I'm measuring twice, cutting once, and everything seems like it's fitting together really good. So I'm super happy about all of that. And while I was doing that, I noticed that the driver's side front pillar here was really thin. It might have even been split completely. But I'm just going to put a little dab of a CA there, and I can just give it a little quick sanding before I put the primer and paint on it. But I just thought it's super thin, if not broken. I'm going to put a little bit here just to go ahead and strengthen that point, because, God, this would be the worst time in the world now to have that collapse on me. Now, Vallejo paints are a water-based acrylic paint, and I found they work great for painting things like interiors and the plastic and stuff. So I'm just using a little bit of Vallejo black. And as always, I'm going to use a nice wet brush to make sure it flows good and I don't get a bunch of brush marks. And I'm just going to brush paint the interior. It's all going to be behind blue tinted glass. Half the stuff I'm doing on the inside, man, I don't even know if you're going to be able to see the coffin when I'm done. So I'm freaking out about that. But, you know, I'll know it's there, and so that just makes me feel better about it. So a nice wet brush, a little Vallejo, and this will probably end up getting like 2 coats. I probably could have put primer on it or put like a base coat of Vallejo on it. But you really just don't need to, especially this is something that's never going to be handled again because it's going to be encapsulated inside of the hearse. So we'll just go ahead and paint this sucker up black and put it to the side. Okay, gang, there it is, the end of part 1 of Mega Build, the S&S Cadillac ambulance conversion to a hearse. I hope you're really digging on this. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll release part 2, and again on Monday we will release the entire thing uncut, end to end. Alright? So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here until tomorrow morning. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, click subscribe, click the little bell. You'll be notified whenever I release a new video. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below. I love to talk with you guys. I'm going to get out of here. Until tomorrow, have a very conversion-y, mega buildy kind of day, and be good.